He watched her from across the lavish dining room, a predator tracking his prey. Crystal lights scattered across the tables like stardust, while sycophantic laughter in the corner hummed like an arrogant chorus. She was just a black waitress, a faint face among the sea of tray-bearers. But tonight, as vintage wine lit fire in his eyes and praise poured fuel on it, a cruel thought flickered. Before we continue, if stories about dignity, art, and resilience resonate with you, hit like and subscribe so you won't miss the next chapter. Now, back to Ethers, where a platinum card is about to challenge the worth of a black girl. Ethers stood on the 65th floor, overlooking Central Park, glowing like the Milky Way. The air smelled of money, expensive perfume, classic leather, truffle oil, the clink of silver on porcelain beating like the room's pulse. To the guests, this was a temple of power. To the staff, a battlefield of silent obedience. Maya Johnson, a black waitress in her 20s, had memorized this terrain. Each night she wore the stiff black uniform, pinned back her curls, and held a face so neutral it turned invisible. At the corner table, Reese Covington, 34, CEO of Covington Global, raised his glass to celebrate an acquisition. Beside him sat Oliver Finch, his weary-eyed but kind associate, and a few slick men in suits. Reese smirked. Everyone has a price. Oliver frowned. Not everyone. Reese's eyes gleamed with challenge as he scanned the room like its owner, until they landed on Maya. Her posture was taut as a bowstring, her motions pared down to the elegance of survival. To him, that wasn't dignity but the habit of submission. A few glances from other tables grazed her skin, fine needles of prejudice, old yet ever fresh. He lifted a hand, a wave both lazy and commanding. "Hey, waitress." The word was sharpened by class and a thin overtone of power, enough for everyone nearby to understand the display. Maya stepped forward, hands folded behind her. "Yes, sir?" He didn't invite her closer, kept her on the edge of the leather seat as though she were pleading. From a black leather wallet, he drew a platinum card, not handing it but pointing it at her like a weapon. $10,000, right now. Dance for us, 5 minutes. Prove you can do more than carry trays. Murmurs burst like bubbles. Manager Marcus Henderson hurried forward, but with a guest that big, no one dared interrupt. Heat crawled up Maya's neck. This wasn't an invitation but a public dissection, a blade testing if dignity could be bought, and aimed at a black woman in a restaurant uniform. He wanted her to shrink between survival and pride, then collapse. He assumed she was poor. Her skin and apron told him so. He was right on one count. She was desperate, but not for what he imagined. In her mind flashed Noah Johnson, her younger brother under the sterile lights of St. Damian's. Noah had systemic juvenile idiopathic arthritis, SJIA. Biologics cost a fortune, most uncovered by insurance. $10,000 meant 2 weeks of medication, a frame for hope. Pride, her shield all these years, thinned like paper. But surrender wasn't in her dictionary. There was another way. Seize control. Maya lifted her head, met Reese's gaze. All right. One word, sharp as lightning. A few jaws dropped. She continued, calm voice anchoring the room. But not here, by the piano, and you pay up front. Reese laughed, thinking he'd already won, and nodded. The card machine was brought over. He swiped without looking, and a receipt for $10,000 printed out. He held it out like a prize. Maya took it, folded it, slipped it into her apron pocket, her hand steady. Then she turned from his table, placing his weapon of power back where it belonged. At the piano's glow, Maya unclipped her hair. Her curls tumbled down like waves. She kicked off her work shoes, bare feet meeting the cold stone floor. The restaurant fell silent. Reese folded his arms, grinning in anticipation of a clumsy, perhaps cheap display, a show to prove his thesis that everyone had a price. But Maya closed her eyes, drew a breath. In that instant, ethers vanished. Before her rose pine resin, old wood floors, the mirror of her rehearsal room years ago. Her teacher's voice returned. Don't dance the steps, tell the story. The story she was about to tell wasn't just of a fractured life, but of a soul long priced by skin and apron. Structurally, this was the turning point. From being forced to perform, Maya set the terms, chose the stage, and shifted the blow from being bought to narrating value. And the platinum card, the weapon of power, was already neutralized. It became a receipt of moral compensation the moment she turned her back. Maya began without music. Her hands rose, not in a graceful arc, but as if pushing against an invisible wall. Core tightened, back taut, fingers trembling before clenching into fists. A woman at a nearby table unconsciously touched her own throat. Control was the first note. Then rhythm broke from her feet. Percussive beats against the stone floor, sharp and certain like a skin drum, each step a question hurled at prejudice. Who do you think I am? Her body burst free from restraint, fusing classical ballet with contemporary force. An arabesque, lines perfect, suspended in air by willpower, followed by a jagged contraction of the torso, as if crushed beneath the weight of injustice. A chain of fouettes ignited into a whirlwind, not the polished flourish of a stage recital, but the frantic spin of someone racing against demons. Bills, injection schedules, scornful glances. The words, "This girl belongs in the kitchen," whispered down hallways. The story poured out, a raw catharsis. Parents lost in an accident. She worked shifts while guiding her younger brother through fevers. Emergency rooms, and bills cold and white as snow. SJIA had stolen Noah's childhood, and Maya's own dream, the Joffrey Scholarship, was folded away into a box. Her grand jeté was not joy, but desperation, a reach toward a life that always stayed just one stride beyond her grasp. A decent life. Every transition was a declaration. Stripping off the invisible uniform, returning the label Black Waitress to those who pinned it on her, reclaiming her name. Reese, a seasoned collector of art, suddenly recognized that the language before him could not be bought. Sweat beaded his temples. His mantra, "Everyone has a price," cracked open in the very room he thought he owned. Oliver Finch whispered, "Who is she?" The question carried astonishment and shame, the shame of realizing he had been sitting in the wrong chair, the judge's seat, measuring another human's dignity. For the finale, Maya slowly folded to the floor, shoulders trembling, not performing, but releasing truth through every broken defense. Then, with deliberate strength, she rose. Spine uncoiled, chin lifted, eyes alight. A wordless proclamation. "You will not break me." The moral scaffolding of Reese's spectacle collapsed like dominoes. Who had just been bought here? Certainly not her. Silence stretched 10 heartbeats, heavy as lead. Oliver clapped first, hesitant then firm, standing. The room awoke, rising to their feet, not applauding a pitiful effort, but hailing the masterpiece that had just unmasked them. Reese remained seated, body rigid. Applause thundered, deafening in his ears. He had meant to stage a humiliation, but what he received was a work of art he himself had paid to witness. Maya did not bow. She calmly slipped her shoes back on, brushed away tears, and passed the flustered manager, pushing through the heavy glass doors, leaving behind a room in upheaval and a billionaire shattered from within. In her apron pocket, the $10,000 receipt rested quietly, a record of compensation. That night, the money went straight to the hospital, 2 weeks of medicine for Noah. From an analytical view, this was a reversal of power. The audience was no longer the moral jury, the man with the card merely a ticket holder, and the black waitress reclaimed her role as storyteller, the only one with the right to place the final period. The next morning, Reese's 5 a.m. routine, trainer, Asian pre-market reports, black coffee, collapsed. The image of Maya dancing under the lights burned across his retina like a scar. He ordered his assistant, Paige Davis, to cancel legal calls, postpone the board meeting, and find her. Not to silence her. He needed to know who she was, no longer with the gaze of a conqueror, but with the shame lodged in his chest. The file landed on his desk. Maya Johnson, 24. Joffrey scholarship at 16. Dropped out at 19 after family tragedy. Parents killed in an accident. Noah, her younger brother, locked into endless treatment for SJIA, biologics excluded from insurance. Since then, Maya had drifted through low-wage jobs, always choosing cash to dodge wage garnishments from $400,000 in medical debt. No record in the file could describe the language of her body last night, and that was why it hurt more. A life forced into silence at the crossroads of class, race, and health care. Meanwhile, social media exploded. A shaky, blurry clip from a busboy spread everywhere. Billionaire dares black waitress to dance and gets destroyed. Tags like Angel of Ethers and Firebird in an apron soared. To Maya, even the praise, though kind, was another form of intrusion. The dance, the one thing she had kept for herself, was now public property. She shut off Wi-Fi, turned off her phone, stayed by Noah's bedside all night at St. Damian's, then returned to the cramped Queen's apartment where her roommate, Jenna Brooks, held up a trembling phone. "Maya, you have to see this." On screen, she saw herself, her own face contorted with pain, and felt stripped bare. Reese, searching for words, took an ordinary black Audi, leaving the Bentley and the chauffeur behind. He stood on the sun-splashed sidewalk outside the housing complex and rang the bell at Unit 4B. No answer. Jenna stepped out, pink-dyed hair and guarded eyes. "You actually have the nerve to come here." Reese said he wanted to apologize. Jenna hurled back the clarity he lacked. "An apology doesn't erase the reporters outside. You turned her life into a circus." Then, unguarded, she slipped. "She's at St. Damian's with Noah." Reese nodded, but didn't enter the hospital. He understood the sacred boundary. He waited. At 9 p.m., Maya returned. Streetlight carved exhaustion into her brown cheeks. Seeing Reese, she froze like a gazelle meeting a tiger's stare. Her hand clenched the keys. "What are you doing here?" Her voice was flat ice. He stepped forward, she stepped back. "I came to apologize," she cut him off. "You came to my home. You investigated me. Don't insult my intelligence any further." Reese stopped, nodded. "I did. I needed to understand how I could be so wrong." He recited what he'd learned, the scholarship, the debt, Noah. Maya flinched at her brother's name from his lips. "Don't speak of Noah. You have no right." Reese, conditioned to solve everything with money, slipped into his old reflex. "My foundation, scholarships, Noah's entire treatment, everything. Just say the word." The sentence detonated a mine. Maya gave a dry, bitter laugh. "You still don't get it. You think everything is a transaction. My life, my brother's health, my talent, they're not for sale. The $10,000 you paid I gave to the hospital. That's the end of us." She turned, entered the building. The words, "not for sale," hung in the air like the final verdict on a billionaire's philosophy. Analytically, this was the midpoint, the redefinition of the conflict. from a financial crisis to a moral structural crisis. Apologies and checks could not redeem him. Only systemic change held a chance. Reese walked back to his car, a strange void in his chest. Not the loss of a deal, but the loss before truth itself. Without hesitation, Reese called Dr. Angela Shaw, head of pediatric rheumatology at St. Damian's. He refused all PR anonymous sponsorship, funneled through a subsidiary, 5 years of funding for SJIA research, upgraded equipment, more staff, and the creation of a pediatric access fund to cover any family that couldn't afford treatment, starting with Noah Johnson. On the other end came the disbelieving breath of a doctor used to begging for grants. Reese needed only one sentence: take it, and treat those kids the best you can. At the same time, he hurled himself into something harder, ending the logic of charity. He invited artistic directors from major theaters, spoke with choreography professors, met with academy admissions boards. He listened about the dancer's body, brief, fragile, and about the chasm where artists of color so often slipped through the safety net. Out of that took shape the Phoenix Initiative. Reese pledged $100 million of his own wealth, half to financial and medical support for artists in crisis, half to build a performance and recovery complex, stage, physical therapy labs, micro scholarships, legal counseling. Not a golden cage, but a runway. This was real transformation. Reese stepped down from the seat of buyer-benefactor and took the seat of builder, an architect of infrastructure to reduce inequity. Oliver studied the draft, eyes lit. This is a strategy for equity creation. Reese replied, in an uncharacteristically calm tone, this isn't charity, it's investment in human potential. But while Phoenix was still on paper, Bianca Stone, a former classmate, now a rising soloist, caught scent of the money and the limelight. She called Reese, smoothly praising his vision, then slid in a dagger. Such a shame about Maya. She's too emotional. In that word, emotional was a whole exclusionary culture, turning a black woman into a puppet of instability to strip her right to define talent. Reese cut the call short. He smelled the blood of envy. On gala night at Lincoln Center, Phoenix would be unveiled. Reese, less arrogant now, moved through the grand hall, shaking hands, but his eyes searched for one name yet unanswered: Maya. He had hand-delivered an envelope. This is not charity, this is a stage. Step onto it whenever you choose, no strings. Her silence didn't anger him. Backstage, Bianca checked her phone, a text from a friendly reporter. Anything hot? She typed fast, a dirty strike. Source says Covington plans to shove Maya into the spotlight. She's unstable, being manipulated. I'm worried for her. Send. The headline soared online before the overture struck. An old but effective formula. Attack the artist's honor, cast the billionaire as predator, frame the black woman as a victim without agency. In Brooklyn, Maya rented a small practice room. Splintered wood floors, fogged mirror. Noah had just received a call from Dr. Shaw. Your entire treatment plan is covered. The news fell like rain on drought. Maya collapsed into a chair, tears streaming. Not performance tears, but the quiet release of 5 years under a mountain. She didn't ask where the money came from. This city had anonymous miracles. She turned on a cello track, warmed up her body, not to compete, but to repair herself. Then her phone flashed breaking news. Billionaire sponsor pushes black waitress dancer into spotlight. Sources say unstable and manipulated. The words punched her gut. Unstable, manipulated. Maya knew exactly whose hand was behind sources. The old fire returned, but colder now, sharpened like a blade of clarity. The healing dance in the practice room ended there. She tucked the invitation card into her coat pocket. Tonight, if anyone was going to write her story, it would be her. Maya arrived at Lincoln Center in a street coat, an intentional contrast between the silk and glitter of the gala and the reality she carried on her shoulders. The name Maya Johnson opened every backstage door like a spell. Curious glances, cautious frowns followed her. Reese was in an emergency meeting with his team over the article when she walked in, voice steady. "I've read it. It's a lie. You once said, 'This is a stage, I've come to use it.'" In that instant, all the tumors of language between them, money, power, shame, dissolved into two simple words: respect and trust. Reese turned to the stage manager. "Change the program. Phoenix presents. Maya Johnson now." 3 bells, curtain up. A solitary spotlight spilled onto the black stage. The hall murmured. They recognized the woman from the video. But tonight's dance wasn't the catharsis of ethers. It was control. Movements honed to razor edges, stamina like steel, no wasted breath. Maya's arabesque held so long the audience felt time fracture. Her chaînés pulled space like magnets, the fouettes spun fast, flawless, striking directly at the slur, unstable. She wasn't pouring out pain for pity, she was proving capability. Midway, she inserted a sharp, percussive break, her feet stamping Morse code into the floor. Not for sale. The piece ended with her standing tall, chin lifted, eyes sweeping the rows, no collapse, no plea. The message had shifted, from surviving to commanding. Silence fell first, the reverent kind. Then, like a forest catching wind, the audience surged to its feet. This wasn't applause for a David Goliath tale. It was applause for a great artist. Backstage, Bianca Stone stood frozen, her face like saltstone. She was no longer a rival, she was simply irrelevant. Maya stepped from the light into the shadows of backstage, where Reese waited. At this junction, analysis gave way to simple morality. Reese spoke, slow and clear. "Thank you for showing them who you are." No contracts, no checks, no exclusivity clauses. Only one invitation. Phoenix needs an artistic director, someone who knows what it means to fight and what it means to build a stage for others. Will you join me as a partner? In that moment, Maya looked at his outstretched hand, then into his eyes, not seeing a billionaire but a man who had finished the lesson. Some things cannot be bought, and the duty of power is to build structures that protect them. She placed her hand in his, not as a beneficiary but as an equal partner. From an analytical lens, this ending clears every thread. The power thread, the platinum card dethroned by the language of the body. The race thread, from the imposed image of black waitress to the self-defined artist. The redemption thread, from apology check to Phoenix, a lasting ecosystem. Healthcare, recovery, scholarships, legal aid, placed at the fracture lines of the craft. The toxic media thread, dismantled by disciplined performance, not argument. That night, as the theater lights dimmed, New York outside remained the maze of money and noise. But in one corner, a stage had been built. Not to cage talent in glass, but to let it take flight. And the phrase that once cut like a blade now became a liberating spell. Not for sale. From this point on, every time Phoenix lifted an artist, it would be a vote for a world where dignity has no price tag, and art exists not to entertain but to define humanity. One dance had turned humiliation into a declaration of worth. Maya Johnson not only defended herself, she forced a billionaire to change his life entirely. The story reminds us, there are values money cannot buy. And what about you? If you were in Maya's place, facing a $10,000 dare to abandon your dignity, what would you choose? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your answer. If this story touched you, hit like, share this video with friends to spread the message, and subscribe so you won't miss the next stories of resilience, truth, and the power of humanity.